The auditorium buzzed like a hornet's nest. Cameras clicked, lights glared, seats filled with Americans from every walk of life. They came for answers. They came for truth. They came to watch a debate that would shape the nation's future. And seated at the center, two faces no one could ignore. On the left, former President Donald Trump, flanked by his usual flair, smugness, and suit that screamed confidence. On the right, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, sharp, poised, calm, yet burning with quiet fire. The moderator's voice cracked through the speakers. Tonight, we dive into justice, accountability, and what America must become. But even before the debate began, something was off. Trump was fidgety, twitchy, almost threatened, not by the cameras, not by the crowd, by her. Because Jasmine wasn't there to play safe. She came with words that could shake marble, with truths that didn't blink. And something in her eyes said, "Tonight won't be easy." As introductions ended, Trump leaned into his mic, muttering just loud enough, "She's not ready for this." Jasmine didn't respond. Not yet. But something inside her had already shifted, and the nation had no idea what was coming. Minutes into the debate, Jasmine held her ground. She spoke of families torn apart by injustice, of prisons packed with the poor while the rich walked free, of names forgotten in the courtrooms but screamed in the streets: Breonna, George, Elijah. She wasn't yelling, but her words pierced like needles through silence. Trump rolled his eyes. "You keep saying justice, but let's be real," he snapped. "You've got passion, sure. But facts? Not so much. You sound like you're reading a script from a protest sign." The crowd stiffened. Cameras zoomed in. Jasmine took a breath, her lips parting, but Trump wasn't done. "I mean, look at her," he smirked, raising his hands. "Every time I hear this tone, this whining about fairness, I wonder, is it really about justice or just noise?" The auditorium gasped. Even the moderator froze. But Jasmine, she didn't flinch. She blinked slowly, then leaned slightly forward, quiet, still, steady. That's when she said it. 7 words, not shouted, not angry, but so sharp, so true, and so perfectly placed. It felt like thunder breaking through glass. The crowd didn't clap. They couldn't, because every jaw had dropped. Trump sat there blinking. The smirk drained from his face like spilled paint. Jasmine had just spoken, and the words still echoed in the room, though she only said them once. 7 words. You don't mock what you don't understand. That was it. No yelling, no insult, just truth, clean and cutting. Trump tried to speak, tried to laugh, but nothing came out. The crowd, silent. And then, murmurs. From the back row to the front, you could hear the air shifting. Phones came out. People whispered, "Did you hear that?" Journalists scribbled notes. Commentators backstage pressed their earpieces. The moderator cleared her throat, but couldn't even find her place in the script. Jasmine looked away, not at Trump, but at the audience, not seeking applause, just letting it land. And land it did. Every mother who lost a son, every child who watched their parent marched away in cuffs, every voice that had been called noise finally felt heard. Trump. He looked down. For the first time, he had no comeback. And across America, hearts cracked open, not from anger, but from recognition, because for once, truth had silenced power. Trump stared at the podium. It was strange, seeing him silent. He had spoken over governors, generals, even Supreme Court judges. But now, after one quiet sentence from Jasmine, he was speechless. Jasmine didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She just turned her gaze back to the moderator and said, "Shall I continue?" That line, calm, controlled, was like adding ice to fire. The moderator nodded, almost nervously. Jasmine picked up her thought exactly where she left off. She talked about Tamir Rice, 12 years old, Shot in seconds. No trial. No second chance. She paused and whispered, "Justice doesn't yell. It just waits for someone brave enough to say what hurts." And many in the audience, their eyes were already wet. A woman in the second row wiped her tears. She'd lost her cousin last year. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong skin. Behind the cameras, producers were frantically signaling. Phones were ringing. Social media feeds were exploding. "You don't mock what you don't understand" was trending in 30 states before the debate even ended. Trump looked uncomfortable, like he wanted to leave. But Jasmine, she was just getting started. And everyone, friend or foe, could feel it. Something had shifted. By morning, every news outlet was playing the clip, again and again. Different languages, different headlines, same 7 words. "You don't mock what you don't understand." Jasmine hadn't just spoken for herself. She had spoken for the unseen, the unheard, the disrespected. For girls told they're too loud. For men treated as threats just for existing. For people silenced in rooms they paid to enter. The world was listening now. In London, a newspaper called her the calm that shook America. In Johannesburg, one outlet wrote, "When the storm stood still, Crockett spoke." In America, commentators couldn't agree on much, but even Trump's critics and allies both admitted that moment was something different. Meanwhile, Jasmine returned home to Dallas. She didn't post a video. She didn't brag. She walked into a local library and read to a group of school kids, just like she did every Friday when she wasn't in D.C. One child, a little girl with big glasses, whispered to her, "I saw you on TV. You made him be quiet." Jasmine smiled, leaned down and said, "Sometimes silence is the loudest sound." The girl nodded and hugged her. In Washington, the walls were shaking, not physically, but politically. Inside the West Wing, Trump's closest aides were pacing. "He needs to respond," one said. "He looks weak," another muttered. But Trump wasn't talking. Not on Twitter, not on Truth Social, not even to Sean Hannity. He was silent, and that scared his team more than anything. Because Donald Trump never stayed quiet after a hit, not until Jasmine. Meanwhile, Jasmine was being invited everywhere. Morning shows, late-night podcasts, universities. But she kept saying no, except one. An interview with a local station in Houston. When asked why she turned down the big networks, she said, "This moment isn't about me. It's about what we allow, what we ignore, and what we're brave enough to face." That quote was printed on signs the next day at marches in 10 cities. She didn't ask for them. She didn't post about them. But her words were now walking without her. "Trump?" he finally tweeted. 3 words. Overrated. Pure drama. It was deleted 10 minutes later. But the damage had already been done, because even his followers knew he felt that line, and he couldn't shake it. It didn't take long. 3 days after the debate, the hate poured in like a flood. Anonymous calls, racist emails, fake stories on fringe websites. They called her angry, divisive, disrespectful. One photo showed her face with a target over it. Jasmine sat in her office, reading quietly. Her assistant, Carla, stood nearby, clearly upset. "They don't even know you," Carla said. "They're just scared of your voice." Jasmine looked up, calm as always. "Then we speak louder by standing taller." But the threats kept coming. Her home had to be watched by police. Her mother called, voice trembling, begging her to stay safe. Jasmine listened, but didn't stop. That same day, she was invited to a high school in Baltimore. She almost canceled. But when she saw the sea of young black girls in that auditorium, some holding signs that said, "You don't mock us either," she knew she made the right choice. She took the mic and said, "I'm not here to fight back with fire. I'm here so you don't ever have to fear your light." The crowd stood. Some clapped, some cried. All believed her. Even with the storm growing, Jasmine never shook. The office door creaked open. In walked a man with gray hair, glasses, and a warm smile. "Jazz?" he said gently. Jasmine looked up and gasped. "Uncle Ray?" Ray had raised her when her parents passed. He was a retired janitor, known for quoting Maya Angelou and listening more than he spoke. She stood up and hugged him hard. He held her face in his hands and whispered, "Your mama would have wept last night. Not out of fear, but pride." Jasmine blinked back tears. Ray sat beside her and pulled something from his coat. A newspaper clipping, old, yellow, wrinkled. It was an article from when Jasmine, at just 12, had written a letter to a judge asking why her friend's father was locked up for stealing food. She had written, "Is surviving a crime?" Ray held it up. "You had the truth back then. Don't let their noise dim it now." Jasmine smiled through tears. It wasn't a big speech, but it brought her peace. Later that night, she stared at that clipping under a desk lamp, whispering, "Still surviving, still speaking." The shadows danced. The past had returned, not to haunt her, but to remind her who she was. The envelope came in plain white. No return address, no markings. Just one word on the front. Truth. Jasmine opened it slowly. Inside was a handwritten letter, neat and careful. It read, "Dear Congresswoman, my name is Devin. I'm 14. My big brother was shot by a police officer last year. He didn't do anything. He had headphones in. He didn't hear the officer shout. Everyone forgot him. No news, no justice, just silence. But then I heard you on TV. You said people mock what they don't understand. And I knew. They didn't understand my brother either. Thank you, you made my pain feel seen. I cried when I watched you. For once, someone didn't yell. You just told the truth. Please don't stop. Devin." Jasmine sat alone at her desk, reading the letter over and over. She cried. For Devin, for his brother, for all the stories that never made headlines. She placed the letter in her drawer next to the old newspaper clipping. 2 papers, 2 truths, and 1 reason to keep going. It was supposed to be a friendly radio interview. Local, simple, safe. Jasmine arrived alone. No assistant, no team. Just her and her quiet strength. The host, a man named Marcus, greeted her with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. 5 minutes in, the tone changed. He interrupted. He twisted her words. He played old clips out of context. Then he leaned in. "So, Congresswoman," Marcus said, voice sharp, "are you trying to divide America with all this emotional drama? Or are you just good at playing victim?" The studio went silent. The sound tech froze. Even Marcus's co-host shifted uncomfortably. Jasmine blinked slowly. She could have walked out. She could have shouted. Instead, she leaned forward, voice soft. "I don't play anything. I live it. And if my truth makes you uncomfortable, imagine how it feels to carry it." Marcus smirked, but the phone lines lit up. First 1 call, then 2, then 5. Callers defending her, crying, sharing their own stories. One woman said, "She just spoke my whole childhood in 1 sentence." Another man sobbed, "Thank you for not backing down." Jasmine looked down, hands shaking slightly. Not from fear, from the weight of it all. She didn't need applause. The tears on the other end said it all. Later that evening, Jasmine sat in her hotel room alone. No makeup, no cameras. Just the city lights outside and her thoughts. Her phone buzzed. Another death. Another black boy. Another excuse on the news. She threw the phone down and buried her face in her hands. And for the first time in a long time, she let herself sob. Not quiet tears, not elegant grief. Full, shaking cries that came from her stomach. She cried for her childhood, for the letters no one answered, for the threats, the hate mail, the faces she couldn't save. Then a knock on the door. It was Carla, her assistant, holding soup and a box of tissues. "I heard the radio," Carla said gently. "They tried to rattle you, but you rattled the nation." Jasmine didn't speak. She just cried harder, this time into Carla's shoulder. Because even warriors need a place to break. And that night Jasmine cracked. But in that crack, there was light. Because healing doesn't look like strength. It looks like truth. And she was finally letting it through. The email subject read, "What you said saved my life." Jasmine almost deleted it, but something told her to open it. It read, "Congresswoman Crockett, I've worked in Washington for years. I've seen lies, games, silence. I was ready to quit. I'd packed my office. Then I saw you stand there, so calm, so honest. You reminded me why I started. I have something to give you, something that's been hidden too long. But it can't be shared by email. Meet me tomorrow, quietly. You'll know me by my name, Delaney." That was it. No title, no clues. But Jasmine felt her breath catch. Delaney. That name meant something. Long ago, when she interned on Capitol Hill, there was a woman named Sarah Delaney. She'd fought quietly for justice behind closed doors, then vanished after pushing a bill too far. A whistleblower, they said. A hero, some whispered. If this was that Delaney, then Jasmine was about to uncover something bigger than a debate, something that could either change everything or end it all. Jasmine arrived at the quiet cafe just after sunset. It was small, tucked between a bookstore and an old shoe repair shop. No crowd, no press, just shadows and whispers. She wore a hoodie, no makeup, just a tired heart. Inside, in the farthest booth, sat a woman with silver curls and eyes like steel. Sarah Delaney. Jasmine sat down slowly. "You really came," Delaney said. "You really wrote," Jasmine replied. Delaney pulled out a thick manila envelope and slid it across the table. "This is what they don't want seen," she said. "Memos, emails, internal reports, proof of years of corruption, blocked reforms, silenced voices, and one name behind it all." Jasmine opened the envelope. Her hands trembled. Inside were documents, real, signed, time-stamped, and one name repeated again and again. DJT. Delaney leaned closer. "You hit him harder than any law ever did. But this will break the silence he built around himself." Jasmine looked up. "Why me?" Delaney's voice cracked. "Because you don't shout to be heard. You speak to heal." Outside, the street lamps buzzed. Inside, a revolution was being born on paper. And Jasmine? She had a choice to make. The next morning, Jasmine walked into her office with the envelope in her purse. But the minute she sat down, her phone rang. "Don't do it," the voice warned. No name, no greeting, just threat. She hung up. Then her personal laptop blinked off. Screen, black. Later, she tried to email her team. Nothing worked. Then Carla rushed in. "Your name's on the news again." Jasmine turned on the TV. A man in a dark suit was saying, "Congresswoman Crockett is becoming dangerous. She's spreading division, and if she continues, we may have to investigate her ties." It wasn't just backlash now. It was war. Later that night, at a town hall meeting in St. Louis, Jasmine stood to speak, but was met with angry protesters yelling lies and holding signs that read, "Traitor." But something happened. A small boy, maybe 9 years old, walked up to her stage, holding a sign too. His sign read, "Thank you for telling the truth." He didn't say a word. He just handed her a flower. And Jasmine? She almost couldn't speak, because that flower weighed more than all the threats in the world. Jasmine sat on the edge of her hotel bed, TV off, phone off, documents spread out before her. One report showed a bill Donald Trump quietly blocked, a bill that could have saved thousands of lives in poor neighborhoods. Another revealed a judge pressured into silence. Another, records of black veterans denied care due to reclassified, technical errors. The truth wasn't just ugly. It was evil. She had everything she needed. But going public meant war. Real war. More threats. More lies. More pain. She looked at her reflection in the hotel window. Tired eyes, but unbroken. Then she picked up a pen and signed a statement. To the American people, you deserve the truth. She sent it to 3 journalists she trusted, then turned her phone back on. Messages flooded in, one from her mother. I love you. I'm scared, but I'm proud. Another from Devin, the boy who'd lost his brother. His voice in the voicemail cracked. You didn't forget him. Thank you. You made him matter again. Jasmine sat quietly, wiping her eyes. She had chosen the hard road, the honest road, and now all of America would know. The story dropped at dawn. CNN, MSNBC, even Fox. Jasmine Crockett leaks explosive files, links Trump to years of suppressed justice. Talk shows panicked, podcasts exploded, TikToks were crying, streets filled with marches. Young people held signs that read, "She didn't yell, she revealed." Others wore shirts with her words, "You don't mock what you don't understand." In D.C., Trump's team scrambled. At a surprise press conference, Trump stormed out after being asked, "Do you deny suppressing justice for political gain?" He muttered, "It's all fake, it's a witch hunt." But his eyes, shaking. Meanwhile, Jasmine stayed silent, not because she was afraid, but because the truth didn't need more noise. Carla sat beside her, holding her hand. "They're scared, Jazz." "No," Jasmine said, voice soft. "They're seen." Outside her office, a crowd gathered, thousands. They weren't chanting. They were standing, holding candles. One voice whispered through the crowd, "She didn't raise her voice. She raised ours." And in that moment, Jasmine Crockett wasn't just a congresswoman. She was a mirror, showing a country the wounds it tried to forget. They scheduled another debate. Last minute, prime time. Trump accepted. So did Jasmine. It was being called the final showdown. The stage was darker this time, smaller, intense. Trump looked older somehow. Jasmine looked grounded. The moderator asked one question. "Congresswoman Crockett, what is justice?" Jasmine paused, looked straight into the camera, and said, "Justice isn't loud. It doesn't wear red or blue. It shows up when no one claps. It holds the hand of a mother burying her son. It listens to kids who were told to shut up. It protects, not power, but people." The audience was still. Jasmine's voice cracked, but she kept going. "We didn't come here to fight each other. We came here to remember who we are. I didn't bring this truth to shame you. I brought it to free us." She turned to Trump. "I pray you find peace, because hurting people has never made a nation strong." Trump didn't reply. He lowered his eyes, and in front of millions, he said nothing. The sun rose slowly over America the next morning. In schools, teachers played Jasmine's final words for students. In barbershops, people wiped tears with fists. On buses, strangers nodded to one another. Because something had shifted. Not perfectly, not completely, but deeply. The truth had been spoken without anger. Courage had walked calmly into chaos. And Jasmine? She returned to the same library she always visited on Fridays. The little girl with big glasses ran up and asked, "Did you win?" Jasmine knelt down and whispered, "We all did, because victory isn't always loud. Sometimes it's soft. Sometimes it's just finally being heard. Sometimes it's a nation realizing that healing begins when one person refuses to be silenced. If her words touched you, if they made you cry, if they reminded you of someone you love, please, don't scroll. Like you'll this video, comment sure with your story, and you'll subscribe, not just for content, but for courage. Let's build a space where truth is safe, where voices like Jasmine's never fade. Your comment could be the light someone needs tonight. So drop a heart, a name, a thank you. Let's make this truth echo together.